is Impacting Life 24/7 with your host, CL King. Can you believe we got this whole thing pulled off? If you want something done right, call in the Marines. Well, and then if you want something done super right, call in the Colonel for sure.
Yeah.
And this is our second part of this two-part series. Very, very blessed to be able to have someone in our studio joining with us that, I know that he's in high demand. He's an author, a speaker, a veteran, an inspirer, a man of faith, a man of God. And I said, man, we cannot just put all of this out in one show, Colonel. We can't do it. I just know we don't have the capacity to fit the vast amount of knowledge and wealth and experience that you have accumulated over 65 years. We have no way to get that all done in one 1 hour show, Colonel. And I said, listen, I know you're a colonel, but I got to pull rank. I'm the president. So you've got to come back to the show one more night. And I know all of that is a bit of laity, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a very, very important and powerful topic. Last night, we discussed so many things relative to the doctor's journey. I like having people on that have the experience too, not just that they went and got an education, though that's important. He's a doctor, he's a physician, so I needed him to go to school, but he experienced what he talked about last night, and we felt it in the room. He's all the way over there in Texas, and I could feel the power of his words here in North Carolina. And so we are very, very delighted to have in our studios Dr. Skip Mondragon. And I want to tell you, he said some time ago, he says, listen, I'm a colonel. I'm an Army vet. I'm a national wrestling champion. I've been in the Army 26 years. I've been deployed for 30 months in combat. I'm a tough guy. But guess what else happened? The colonel found himself one day lying under his desk. And he said, you know what? I need to close the blinds. I need to close the doors. I need to close everybody out. And he sat in that position for 4 hours, ladies and gentlemen. He had hit rock bottom and he couldn't go on any longer. And you know what he said? I need help. And listen, that is what, if we can't do anything else tonight, because I'm going to have fun because I got my co-host with me, Mr. Mike Black. If we can't do anything else, if we can get someone to say, I need help. If we can get someone to say, I feel like I'm alone. And we can tell them, hey, man, you're not alone. We're going to get you walking with, you don't realize you might be alone on the mat, but you're not alone in the room. That was so powerful. The doctor and I was talking off camera, and we talked about all the people that truly are in your corner, and we want to try to engage some of them. We're going to talk about his book. We're going to talk about his future plans. We might promote him to general tonight. Who knows? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone will put your hands together and join with me as we welcome back to the High Definition Studios my friend, Dr. Skip Mondragon. Welcome, Skip.
Thank you, CL. I am so happy to be here tonight. You were talking about wearing your Marine hat. We were also laughing because you were saying that you probably would have been intimidated, or I think the word you used was scared of me because I was a colonel.
Right.
And it reminded me of when I was teaching our residents, and we would go on rounds. And afterwards, I'd start talking with these residents, and someone would say, I was so intimidated from you. I stand 5 foot 5 inches tall. I weigh about 128 pounds. I think I'm an approachable guy. I'm friendly. I'm outgoing. And I have these residents saying, we were so intimidated by you. And I'd have to reflect on it. And I think, well, why is that? Well, first, I was the chief of my department. Secondly, I have some gray hair, albeit I didn't wear it as long as this, but it's gray. Third, I wore the Eagles.
Right.
Or, of course, with the BDUs, they were right there. That Eagle was right there. And of course, I've been around the block several times.
Right.
We were talking about several things yesterday, and I would like to start with suffering.
Yes, sir.
Because when you are depressed, you suffer in body, in mind, and in spirit.
Right.
I'd like to read something from my book, just a very short passage that speaks to this suffering. I had been battered by suffering for 10 months before I admitted I was depressed and was formally diagnosed. We can try to ignore suffering, but to no avail. I tried to minimize my suffering, ignore it, deny it, scream at it, pray it away. Yet it became my constant, unwanted companion. Even in the best of moments, it resolutely stood next to me. I could not free myself from its powerful grasp. I was no match for this overpowering foe. Suffering, suffering, suffering.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Depression sucks you down into that vortex of suffering. We touched upon some of those symptoms, and I'd like to very quickly review those.
Yes, sir. Please.
The symptom, certainly, that you have to start with is that blue mood. And as I mentioned, that's not feeling down and discouraged. This is a heaviness. It's a palpable darkness that descends upon you. It's going through life that's black and white.
Right.
There's withdrawal, loss of passion for the things you normally find exciting and you enjoy doing.
Right.
Your cognition is impaired, trouble remembering things, trouble remembering what I read 5 minutes earlier, trouble recalling medications, medical syndromes. Horrible negative thoughts that start rolling over in your mind and batter you day and night. You're a fake. You don't deserve to be a colonel. You've let your family down. You've let the army down. You've let your department down. Who's going to want to hire you? This endless play loop, day and night.
Right.
You lose confidence, become indecisive, shame, guilt just rack you. Anxiety certainly can be common. And one thing in men that's more common than women is irritability and anger.
Mm.
Sleep becomes disrupted. Insomnia. I suffered horrendous insomnia. There were nights that all I did was up and down all night. In fact, that was one of the worst things that I suffered, was this insomnia.
Mm.
There would be nights that I would just long for 1 to 2 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Physical symptoms, fatigue, could have headaches. Because of the inflammation, it worsened my osteoarthritis, my shoulders, my elbows, my knees, from the overuse injuries, the wear and tear on my body, from wrestling, from the army. It can also make current diseases, if you have those, diabetes, heart disease, worse. And men, loss of libido, loss of your sex drive. That's very common.
Yeah, I was getting ready to look up libido. I didn't know what that meant, but anyway.
Now you know, Chris. Now you know, buddy.
Hey, babe, what's libido mean? Yeah, you're right, and that is a other symptom for sure.
And if you think about it, if you're suffering all of these things, you lose your productivity.
Yep.
Think about that. How productive are you going to be in your job? Loss of confidence, impaired cognition, indecisive, feeling guilt, shame, you're withdrawn, you're fatigued. You're not going to be very effective, and you're not going to be very productive.
Wow.
Also, suicidality.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I never suffered with suicidal thoughts. Now, let's talk about the devastation that can occur because of depression. Now, these are 2019 figures. Over 17 million individuals suffer major depression. 1 out of 14 adults, 1 out of 7 14 to 25-year-olds, and 1 out of 5 adolescent girls. Now, that was 2019, pre-COVID.
Oh, my.
But because of the isolation, the fears, the doubts, the upheavals, the everything going on regarding COVID-19, from every indication, those rates are going to rise dramatically. Depression is the #1 cause of disability in the United States and worldwide.
And let me just interject there. He just said, ladies and gentlemen, it's the #1 cause. And maybe it could be, I don't know if it's #1, but it sure ranks up there as probably the most ignored or pushed off. See, he's given us true hard facts about the statistical ramifications of depression. But one of the reasons why we asked the Colonel to come here is because some people push it off as it is not a real thing. You know, it's that that you just get over it. You just having a bad day, and that's fine. But the doctor just told us, man, that the rates are climbing, and it's alarming, and it's time for us to identify them.
Right. And let me add one more very concerning here.
Yes, sir.
Up to 2/3 of adult suicides are associated with depression, and untreated depression in our youth is the #1 cause of suicide.
Say that again, doctor. Say it again.
Untreated depression is the #1 cause of suicide in our youth.
In our youth. See, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, doctor. This is why we put so much emphasis on impact. Our goal, I didn't tell the doctor this, but our goal is to reach 1 million youth. So far, out of the 400,000 people that we've reached, probably over half of them have been young people. And the reason why is because the life that I lived as a kid, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, there's nothing else to life. And there's so many kids that we see in all corners of the world, doctor, that are suffering in silence. And I'm hoping that, thank you, Michelle, for tagging people and sharing this message. But I'm hoping that people will listen to us tonight, because like I told you, I didn't go into great detail, but that last statistic you gave about the youth, that hit home with us just 4 weeks ago.
Oh.
And we lost a very, very promising, amazing young man. And it was wrapped in the tapestry of depression. So so now that we've got your attention, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we have Dr. Skip Mondragon on Impacting Life 24/7. I'm so thankful that he has decided to grant us some of his time. He's in Central Time, but man, he's got 26 years of experience in leadership. He's got 26 years of experience in faith, beyond faith, but military physician. He's got so many years of experience, but one of the greatest experiences that really endeared me to the doctor was his experience with this topic we're talking about, and that is depression. And so Dr. Mondragon has done so well in cataloging and putting some chronology to this that he put together a book, and that book is amazing. Wrestling is Not for Wimps, and you can go and check out the doctor at wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. And Mike, before we go on, because I really appreciate the way the doctor set the stage tonight, do you got some thoughts on any of his statistics that he had, Mike?
I do. One thing that just speaks to my heart, Skip, I know you can speak to it, is that the veterans that commit suicide, I believe the last statistic was 22 veterans per day. And, I just want to know if you could speak to that a little bit and how that ties into the staggering statistic that you gave, which is just wow. It's just so prevalent that the more we talk about it, get it out there, we can reach somebody out there that might be struggling. But what about the veterans that have that depression and fortunately commit suicide?
Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. And when I speak to that, I say, or even speak to suicide, but certainly among our brothers, our sisters who are committing suicide. And I shouldn't say the word committing, because people don't commit suicide, they die by suicide. Now, let me explain it. People don't want to die. They want to end the pain. They just want the pain to stop.
Right.
And they get to that point where they see no other way to stop the pain. They are hurting so bad that they think there is no other way. I just want the pain to stop. They become so hopeless, they think everybody will be better off if I'm gone. I'm a burden to others. That's the point they get to. This sense of hopelessness, this sense that my life doesn't count. And I say that one is too many. One is too many. There are programs out there looking to reach out to our vets. And if you know a vet that's struggling, don't let them struggle alone. Don't leave your battle buddies alone.
Right.
Get to them, speak to them, offer to take them for help, but make sure they know that you need them. Their families need them.
Right.
Their friends need them. Their fellow service members, we need them. That their lives matter. Their lives matter.
You know, one of the things, Dr. Mondragon, that comes to my mind is the whole year that we have been in has spoken to kind of counter what you just said about letting somebody know you're there for them, letting them know that you're with them, letting them know go reach out to them. Our whole last year has been stay away, resist, seclude, sequester, distance. And the truth of the matter is that we cannot even under, we're in a global pandemic. I get it, y'all. I didn't talk on it till I'm blue in the face. You guys know my position on it. I respect the science, but I also respect humanity. And we cannot be so with our knees smiting against one another. We can't be so self-centered that we forget that there is a world out there that still needs our companionship, that still needs our uplift. And that's what we're here for. That's why we do this every single night. Doctor, I want to just give you a moment to this was a heavy intro, y'all. I want to give you a moment to think about your toughest wrestling match. Because ladies and gentlemen, the doctor's a wrestler, and he's coaches even still. Are you still coaching, or are you done coaching too?
I'm still coaching.
He's still coaching at 65. Probably could take some of them young whippersnappers out.
Well, I got a story about that.
Well, look,
let's just lighten it a little bit. Let me tell you this story.
Go ahead. Let me hear it, Colonel.
All right. I went into the wrestling room. I hadn't been in the wrestling room for a little over 2 years, and I wanted to demonstrate some things. A week ago, Monday, I went into the wrestling room to demonstrate to our local high school, and I was frustrated when I saw some things going on in their matches the weekend before. So I arranged with the coaches, can I come in and show some things and work with the kids. So I went in, and there was a group of, they were wrestling and scrimmaging, group of 3 boys practicing takedowns. There was a group that only had 2. And so the one coach, Robert, he looked at me and said, hey, you want to work with these 2? And yeah, I had warmed up, and yeah, my bravado. Okay, I'll go with them. And so within a couple minutes, because I hadn't been working out intensely, and like I said, I hadn't been on the mats for two years, and I'm
Right.
they're taking it to me. And at one point, one young man throws a cradle. I'm down on my hands and knees, and he throws a cradle. So that means with his hands, he's wrapping around my head and behind my knee. Boom! And he throws me on my back. And as soon as he did that, I felt in my shoulder, my acromioclavicular joint, my AC joint. I felt that pull. It's like, oh man, I've injured that. So I've had several AC joint injuries there. I got these big bumps there from those injuries. And I knew what had happened there. And I get from that. Foolishly, I go back for some more to the point then finally it's like, I'm so tired to say, no more, guys, no more.
No more. Those kids, they should know better, but you know the cool thing.
But I get home and I'm telling my wife, I'm going to go soak in some hot Epsom salts. and she's always telling me this, you had enough, old man, I have no sympathy for you. So I've got ice on my shoulder that night and subsequent nights. I'm soaking in the Epsom. So I was sore for 5 days. I was sore in muscles that hadn't been sore for so long. My hands were sore. I laughed at myself every time I got up. Oh, I'm so sore. So that bravado can get us in trouble.
It can. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Impact Life 24/7 with your host, CL King, and my co-host, Mr. Michael Black. We are joined by the great Dr. Skip Mondragon, and you can find him at wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. For those of you that pass through and join us at various times in our live audience as well as on our podcast, one of the things that Dr. Mondragon has focused on, especially in men, is dealing with depression, because he had to battle it himself. He was a colonel in the Army. He was a 26-year vet. He was a combat veteran with 37 months in the combat zone. He was a world champion wrestler, and he had won all types of medals and achievements in the wrestling world. And then one day it all came crashing in. And so I said, Doctor, I want you to give us your story. Last night, you'll have to go back and get we cannot do the whole story again from last night. You guys will have to watch the show from last night. But tonight I told the doctor I wanted us to, and Mike, I sent you some of those. Just look in your messenger. You should be able to see them, what I sent you in messenger. I asked the doctor, I said, I want to cover now some of the how-tos, and let's get into the nitty gritty and give some people some tangible walkaways. And then we're going to talk about his book. We're going to talk about some faith, and then we're going to let the doctor have the rest of the evening off. So the first question of the night for the doctor is, and the first thing that he's going to do is point number one, highlight the impact of mental illness in men.
Thank you, CL. You heard my story about the bravado, getting me in trouble, injuring my shoulder, and leaving me sore for 5 days.
Right.
Why? Yeah, I can hang with these kids. And if I were in great shape, training intensely, if I had spent time on the mat, sure, I would have been able to.
Right.
But I hadn't done those things. I couldn't hang with these kids. But yeah, I can hang with these kids. Foolishness. Oftentimes, that's how men approach mental health issues. Yeah, I don't need anybody to help me. I'm a man. I'm tough. I'm a soldier. I'm a Marine. We put on that persona and we think, I just need to push through this. It doesn't matter how much we're hurting. It doesn't matter how much we're aching inside, how confused we get, how we're grieving perhaps for a lost brother, a lost sister. Plus, in our personal life, we all face difficulties, health issues, aging parents, deaths in our family, trouble with employment issues, money, difficult in our family, teens, and the list goes on. And that becomes cumulative in our life, those stresses and strains, and they can impact us.
Right.
But oftentimes we don't reach out to somebody and say, I need help. So service members, reach out to a chaplain, a social worker, a psychologist, a counselor, somebody that can help you. Unburden yourself. Don't suffer in silence. Go get help. And I think that's paramount.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I did want to touch upon something lest I forget, CL. Men of color. You're in the Black community. I'm in the Hispanic community. And there are those are two communities, certainly it's even more so. This idea that I know in the Black community, we don't talk about these things. Right. Men don't go get help. It's something that stays behind closed doors. And of course, in the Hispanic community, it's machismo.
Machismo.
And so there is equally, even more so, I should say, right, this difficulty in our communities for men to speak up and go get help. Let's add another layer to that.
Go ahead.
Now in the military, be all you can be. That idea of the Marines, this select group.
Right.
And so that idea that we're going to admit, I'm going to admit I'm struggling. I'm going to admit I'm hurting. I'm going to admit I need help. There's still that stigma related to this. And what people need to understand, especially men, is you're not a wimp. You're not weak. You're not less than. If you admit, I'm struggling, I need help, you're simply human. Don't suffer in silence. Go get help. Because I outlined a lot of these symptoms and how they can make you ineffective, right, less productive, make you more prone to other problems, right, even suicidal. Right. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your family. You owe it to your battle buddies. Go get help.
Don't suffer in silence. Mike, you got those points that I sent you, correct?
I do.
Okay, so I want you to take on point number 2, but listen, ladies and gentlemen, you're tuning in to Impacting Life 24/7 with your host, CL King, co-host Mike Black, there in Havelock, North Carolina. We are blessed to have in our virtual studios Dr. Skip Mondragon, and I've been trying to figure out the whole time, Doctor, what your last name kind of origin was. I'm thinking, okay, Louisiana, or I don't know, man. I'm glad you finally told me that. What descent?
Mira, un nombre español, Mondragon.
I would have never. I was thinking French. I don't know.
Yeah, I did have a friend, a former colleague of mine, that always wanted to give it a French accent, Mondragon. And I used to tell him, Dave, it's not a French name. It's not Mondragon. It's Mondragon. But he wanted to pronounce it like a French name.
Change my name to CL Mondragon. What do you think about that? All right, Black, point number 2.
Yes, Colonel. So can you discuss the ways to combat the stigma of mental illness? And you touched on it, but I did have something to interject real quick, is that when you said the word stigma, it was very poignant that the DOD is doing a thing where they're trying to open up. People can get help and there's not so much of a stigma. I think the DOD's recognized that, can't have this suicide and problems in their ranks. And if they try to be proactive with it, they, get a lot better results, like you were saying. So that kind of jumped out at me, but yeah, what, can you touch on that for us? Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It starts from the top down, Mike, and leaders are from the Chief of Staff of the Army, from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and others that are speaking out on this issue, individuals that are coming forth and say, I've struggled. I had to go get help. And they are recommending, if you are struggling, go get help. So they are beginning to model this and encourage this. men, women, if you're struggling, go get help. Go get help. And I know for me, when I stood up on that stage at Eisenhower Army Medical Center and shared my story, it was with that intent. I wanted to attack the stigma. Here I was, a colonel, chief of my department, well known throughout the hospital, a national wrestling champion, had spent 30 months in combat zones. I wanted people to know that I had become a casualty of depression and that I had needed to go get help. I wanted them to understand. I wanted to give them permission. If you're struggling, go get help. There's great help available. So that was part of the reason I spoke out. Then I wanted to give them lessons that I had learned that had helped me in my recovery. So it starts from the top down, and these leaders not only talking about help being available, but modeling the fact that when they've struggled, openly talking about it, I had to go get help.
Right. And that was the thing. I think that was the probably the third point, but you covered it right there, Doctor. I'm probably going to do a couple things there, but you talked about that. You know, in other words, you give people the clarity, men especially. Okay, now listen to me, ladies. We're not trying to exclude y'all, but there are some things that are peculiar that the doctor is focusing in on. Okay, so don't get upset because we don't say ladies every few seconds. The doctor has an anointing and a calling to minister to men, and so that's why I have him on. But he talks about this. He says men, especially the tough guys, you know, including those that are first responders and vets and firemen and all that. You know, you give them permission to say 2 words: I'm hurting.
Yes.
And that right there, doctor, is you know, if someone can understand that, you come to them and say, man, I'm giving you permission to tell me if you're hurting me. You know, like Mike is one of my closest friends. That's the only way he could get on this show and do this with me. He's not just some whiner I saw on the side of the road. You know, I want him to know. I want, and he same thing for me, man. Listen, if you're hurting, I want you to know I give you permission to hurt.
Yes.
Not that if you're hurting and you come to me, I'm not going to tell you, dog, suck it up and shut up. Right. And that's what we do. And Mike was a Marine. You were an Army colonel, and I was a Marine, and that's what we did in the ranks. Is that you wouldn't even go to sick call if you got hurt. It was not the thing to do. You were called sick, lame, and lazy, right? And then
right.
my stigma so much on not trying to get help in the physical cost me years later because I didn't want to go to sick bay and I didn't want to, right? And then I'm paying for this stuff in my 30s and early 40s, wondering why I didn't go get it taken care of then, because it was a stigma. Doctor, here's what I want you to do. The doctor is, ladies and gentlemen, also, he's an author, and he wrote the book, Wrestling Depression is Not for Wimps. And so, doctor, I'd like you to give us a couple chapters. Tell us a couple of your favorite chapters in the book, and give us some nuggets that might be in those chapters, because I want everybody to go to wrestlingisnotforwimps.com and pick up this book.
Well, there's 3 of the early chapters, and I talk about sleep is not optional. Now, I want individuals to think about this, that, in fact, I want everybody to say this with me. If it's good for the body, let's say it. If it's good for the body, it's good for the brain.
It's good for the brain.
If it's bad for the body,
it's bad for the brain.
It's bad for the brain. All right. Keep that in mind. And insomnia, disruption in your sleep throws everything off. The neurohormonal things that take place, because when you don't sleep and you don't sleep soundly, there's not restoration to your brain. There's not restoration to your body. It raises stress hormones. It depletes your testosterone. It doesn't allow your brain to be washed, because when we sleep, there are certain pores that open up in your brain, and these toxins, if you will, these things in your brain get washed out only when you sleep. So if you don't sleep, those processes aren't taking place. You're not having memories and things consolidated. Learning isn't happening. So there's so many processes that take place in the brain.
Right.
You have a certain substance, brain neurotropic factor being produced, and that grows new brain cells. So many processes happen here. Secretion of other hormones, growth hormone, and other things that restore our body. So when you don't sleep, it disrupts so many things in the brain and in the body.
What chapter do you deal with that in?
I believe that's chapter 4. Sleep is not optional.
So remember that when you pick up Dr. Mondragon's book, Wrestling Depression is Not for Wimps, I want you to go to chapter number 4 and say it out loud when you get to that chapter. Sleep is not optional. What's another chapter, doctor?
Another one is prevention always trumps rehab. And you just mentioned in your own life, CL, that if you had gone to sick call, if you had those issues taken care of, right, you wouldn't be dealing with some of the health issues you are now paying the price for.
Yes, sir.
If I had taken care of some of my own injuries and other things as I was going through life, some of the wrestling injuries, some of the other injuries that I sustained in the Army, I would not be dealing with some of the things. If I had been monitoring my emotional stores, my physical stores, my social energy, my spiritual energy, if I had been monitoring these things appropriately, I would have recognized everything is ebbed. In fact, the Christmas before, so Christmas time, and I think it was right at New Year's of 2013, I remember telling my wife, I was recovering from my knee surgery, and I was telling my wife, I am utterly exhausted mentally, physically, and spiritually. I just felt so depleted. But I didn't have the insight to understand, Skip, you need to replenish yourself.
Right. Yeah.
I just carried on. And so I had a little rebound in January. And then guess what?
Right.
Just crashed to where I found myself April 17, 2014, curled up under that desk in a fetal position. So I hit rock bottom.
So what chapter is that in, Colonel?
Well, I talk about that early in the book about suffering or needing help, rather. That's the very chapter 1. I talk about that descent and that led me to seek help.
Yes, sir.
Another one is that I really enjoyed writing is, so prevention trumps rehab. That was one. Another one is get your head up. I really enjoy this because it has a metaphor, it has other things, but it has things there. Psalm 3, verse 3 reads, "But thou, Lord, art a shield for me, the glory and the lifter of my head." Think about it. When you feel fatigued, when you feel shameful, when you feel defeated, what happens? You drop your head, your shoulders cave in, and your chest is sucked in.
Yeah.
And when you have that posture, things happen physiologically to you, not just psychologically, but physiologically.
Right.
Your testosterone goes down. Your strength and endurance are decreased. Your concentration's decreased. Your creativity is decreased. Your cortisol, stress hormone, is increased. Conversely, what happens when you're feeling proud, when you're feeling successful, when you're feeling triumphant?
Right.
Your head comes up, your shoulders go back, your chest comes out. Now, your testosterone goes up, your cortisol goes down, your creativity goes up, your immunity is increased, strength and endurance are increased, creativity is increased. All these things happen by that change in posture. Psychology follows psychology, psychology follows physiology. Those things happen by that mere change in posture. And what do we see all these young people and others doing when they have this in hand?
Yep.
That weak, hunched over posture.
My colleague Cheryl I love, who has the show The Femin Ninja. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been working on sitting up straight. She got her ninja certificate. I don't know what you call it, but she became a ninja. Started her journey on a ninja at 40 years old.
Awesome.
And, she's a certified ninja, and she told me about these small little things, and one of them was posture.
Yes, sir.
Just make, some people think you got to go out and get dumbbells. You got to go sweat and run 50,000 miles. She said, why don't you just start by sitting up straight? And I said, man, every time I look at my face on this screen, I'm like, no, I can't be this. Come on, Black, sit up straight, brother. Come on, change that posture there, Black.
Yeah.
Black, are you sitting up straight?
Now that idea of get your head up though, it is more than just that. But that idea of we all need somebody in our corner screaming,
right,
get your head up. Because I talk about it in wrestling, because if your head's down, you're prone to getting taken down. You're prone to getting turned over and pinned.
Right.
And we need people in our corner. We need those friends. We need those therapists. We need our battle buddies. We need others in our lives, our spouses, our kids, others telling us, get your head up, get your head up. When we're feeling discouraged, when we're feeling despondent, when we're feeling hopeless, we need people speaking into our lives, saying, get your head up.
Hey, Danny, I appreciate you joining, Danny. Danny's one of our team members. If you could put his web page in the chat, please. Wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. Greg is off tonight. We gave Greg the night off. Can you believe that? Actually, Greg's processing a crime scene tonight.
Oh, bless him.
I said, okay,
Lord, grant him wisdom.
You go do your thing. He's a forensics genius.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. You can also find Skip on Facebook and Twitter at Skip WNW. That's Wrestling Not for Wimps. You can find his book on Amazon, Google, Barnes and Noble, and that book that we've been detailing here. It seems like our time just flies so fast when the good doctor's on with us. I've already booked him for another time to come back with us this year. He didn't agree to it yet, but I'm asking him to. Wrestling depression is not for wimps. Mike, I'd like you to take point number 6 and pose that to the doctor real quick, if you could, please. Point number 6. You got it?
I do. So point number 6, if you could talk about the sides of your tough, charging protector, and then the humble side, where you show like a different side. And that would probably be, the role of, family man, career person.
Yes.
So yeah, how do you, juggle those? And
the two sides of masculinity.
Yes, sir.
And we need both sides to be a whole man. We don't need only this side of the tough, decisive, hard, charging, get it done man who gets in there, is the protector, the provider. We also need that gentle, kind, loving, tender, understanding man who knows when it's appropriate to shed tears, who knows how he can just sit with his brother who's grieving and doesn't have to say anything, but can just Be there with him in his pain. Who knows that sometimes in a situation, there are no words when you've lost somebody to suicide. There's no words. What can you say? You're just there in their pain. That man who can be fun-loving, that man who rolls around on the floor with his kids and grandkids, that man who can be goofy and crack jokes. That side of the man and that side of the man. If we're only one or the other, we are not whole men. We need to be that dual-sided to be whole men.
Right. I 100% agree, Doctor, and that I think Mike might have hit the wrong button and took himself out. But you talked about that, understanding, you talk about this also. We're tripart, and the tripart concept and understanding is what for our listeners.
That we are tripart beings.
Right.
We are body, mind, and spirit, or some would say body, soul, and spirit.
Right.
Our soul being our mind, will, and emotions.
Right.
But if one part is hurting, all parts are hurting, because you can't separate one out of the other. That how do you separate your mind, will, and emotions from your body? How do you separate your spirit from your body? You can't separate these things.
Right.
We're all part and parcel of that.
Yeah. That's good. That's exactly what I believe, and I agree with that. Before we run out of time, because Lord knows I'll have to talk about our sponsors at the end of the show when we let the doctor go. But I got to ask you a few more questions, Doctor.
Yes, please.
In terms of you choosing the experience of wrestling to write this book.
Yes.
Right? So you chose wrestling, which I've wrestled Mike before, and I win every time. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yes, sir. Hey, you're the host of the show. You're exactly right.
Hey, I don't kick myself out the Zoom, so I don't have to. But anyway, you there was some reasons, and we got about, oh my goodness, we got about 6 minutes. There was some reason that you chose from wrestling to put that into the book. So can you give us a couple of those?
Certainly. It goes back to my past, being this weak, wimpy kid that was bullied, that was inept from any sport, discovers wrestling as an 8th grader. Now I become this tough guy. So it relates to that. And then when I become depressed, I am wrestling this 250-pound behemoth called depression. I'm on my back. And no matter how hard I struggle, everything I do, I cannot get up off my back. And I have to ask for help. It speaks to the fact that you have a team. Even though you're out there on that mat by yourself, you have teammates. You have a coach. Right. And I speak to that in my book, that you have that therapist who's working with you. And that bond that you have with that coach becomes a powerful bond. They have your best interest at heart. They can see things you can't see.
Right.
They can teach you things you don't know. And they're rooting for you to succeed. And they'll push you beyond what you think you're capable of. They'll ask you to do things you don't want to do. That's what therapists will do. But you realize too that you can't train alone. You need training partners. And you have supporters. That to do that journey as a wrestler, you've got to have supporters, because it is grueling. Your family, your friends, your school, you've got these supporters. Wrestling is so demanding and so intensive. And when that match comes down to that final minute, perhaps, where you are just going at it, you're dog tired, the match is tied. Who's going to be the winner is decided by what I call the G factor.
The G factor.
Guts. That intrinsic, deep down determination. I am not going to lose. And so when you are dealing with a disease like depression, there has to be something deep down within you that says, I am not going to be defeated by this.
Right.
Something has to rise up within you and say, I am going to recover. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed with my sweetie, tears coming down my face, holding her hand and saying, honey, it's not always going to be like this. Honey, I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
But it was painful. And wrestling can be painful. The training, the competing, and recovery can be painful. But you have to be determined. You have to be willing to do it. It requires discipline. And there's the discipline of sleep. There's the discipline of exercise. There's the discipline of healthy nutrition. There's discipline of maintaining your hydration. There's these other disciplines that are required when you want to get better. You have to listen to your coach.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own. So many analogies here related to wrestling,
right.
Life lessons that wrestling taught me.
Yeah, that's powerful. Mike, I would like for you to give the Colonel one last question, man, since you left the room and came back.
Sure. So if you could just, I know we're short on time, but just speak to who has mentored and impacted you the most in your personal life off the top.
Absolutely. I am honored to tell people that I grew up with my three greatest heroes, my little grandma, my abuelita, my mom, and my daddy-o, my stepfather. I am a blessed man.
Wow. So, Doctor, as you know, I'm a speaker, and I've got some pretty memorable, and I've got some forgettable speeches. And you're giving those throughout so many young people's lives. I really want to ask your permission if I can put together a little speech for students called the G Factor, because I love
Please.
it.
Please do.
We will
borrow whatever you can from me, CL, that would bless others. Absolutely.
We'll definitely give
my delight.
We will definitely give you credits for it. And if they write me $1 million check, I'll give you Mike Black's portion of it. That work, Doctor.
Could I leave your listeners with one last thing?
You sure can.
CL?
The music's going, but the floor is yours. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yes. Let me leave you with this prescription. I have written this prescription thousands and thousands of times. Proverbs 17:22 says, a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. And I've told patients, this medicine has no drug-to-drug interactions. It has no bad side effects, and you cannot overdose on it. So each and every day, laugh and laugh liberally. Laughter is good medicine.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Yes, we laugh a lot all the time, Black, and we need to laugh more. We got to turn these frowns upside down. The doctor gave us such a great prescription. A man of faith, a man of destiny, a man of God, Dr. Skip Mondragon from the Dallas, Texas area. I hope you shook your head yes that you're going to come back on.
Yes, sir. Be my pleasure, CL.
Because as you know, this topic is not something, sadly, that is going to go away. And so I feel like on this show, we want to constantly give voice to these issues that impact people's lives. Doctor, you've impacted my life. And I needed to hear some of the things that you've said. A lot of people think, man, King, you bring these people on because you got it all together. No, I bring them on and I need their help. So listen, Doctor, give our love to your wife of 40 years there in Texas. And thank you for your service to the country. Thank you for being a leader. thank you for not being super intimidating, even though you're a colonel. We just, we really appreciate and bless you. Dr. Mondragon, you can find him at wrestlingisnotforwimps.com. Hook him up on Facebook and Instagram, social media. Get his book, Wrestling Depression is Not for Wimps. Please get his book. And we will definitely have Dr. Mondragon, who's Espanol. I'm working on it, brother. He's not, look, it ain't French. Okay. Come on, we gotta mess his name up. I was like, Mondragon? No, that's Eastern Carolina. If I say, hey, Dr. Mondragon, that's down east Carolina. But we really appreciate you being on the show, Doctor. And we will definitely have you back again. Okay, sir?
Thank you. God bless you.
All right, God bless you.
Yes,
have a great night. Mike, you can stay right there, man. What a show. What a two-part series, huh?
Yes, sir. Very good. That was awesome, man. Really, really good. He was kicking the knowledge, man. He really was.
You know, I almost felt like we should have slid him our insurance card. You know what I mean? Like up under the table, because I mean, what he provided tonight and last night,
Right.
you know, wasn't just anecdotal. This is coming, you know, from number one, it's coming from an MD, but it's also coming from someone who's experienced it. And it was really,
Right.
it was really interesting listening to him last night talk about how he had to, you know, submit to the help of a psychiatrist, and he's the chief of the medical place there, you know.
Right.
But it just goes to show that your position and status doesn't mean that you can't have real life.
Sure. I was definitely impressed how he had to admit it, and he said top down. That really struck me as it really needs to be top down. You know, it can't be paid lip service. It's very serious. I mean, people's lives at stake is real serious business, and I mean, he can, like you said, being a colonel, that's a big deal,
Yeah, and you know, I think about this. You know, how many people in our areas, we're, you know, folks are in the business of defending this country. You know, you're there at Cherry Point. I'm here at Camp Lejeune, and that's just the expected norm when you sign your name on the dotted line. But I'm glad that you brought up that there's been a new awareness of the DOD to address this, that you can't just say, well, shut up, we pay you, that's enough.
Right.
You know, because we can't lose another soldier, airman, marine, or coast. We can't lose another one, brother, because of depression.
That's right. And what they're doing too, I don't know if you're aware of this, but your viewers as well, is that they're doing to where when you meet with somebody, it's not a stigma to where you have to go to their office. They can meet you on your terms. They can meet you at Burger King. They can meet you out in town. And so it's real casual, where if you just want to talk to somebody, if you have any kind of problems, and the command support this, but it's awesome because they're being proactive and preventing, the worst case scenario. So they are, they're aware of it. And this is DoD wide services that they're doing this. So
yeah, humility is a big thing, and that's tough for men because we're prideful beings, because our job is to have answers and be in charge. But truth of the matter is,
sir.
the doctor told us, man, I give you permission to need help. I give you permission. And you guys, thank you from our friends in Texas and folks that tuned in from all across the country, folks that'll be listening to this podcast in our 10 different countries throughout the world. We thank you so much. Our Impacting Life team is really blessed. I didn't get a chance to get to our sponsors tonight. Of course, I'll cover them in the comments on our podcast, as well as we'll talk about them again on Thursday. But Mike, I thank you for flying in. You really did just fly in today and was able to join us on the show. So I really appreciate that, brother. That's what friends do, right?
Yes, sir. No problem. And I'm glad to be here. And thanks for letting me co-host tonight. Went really well. Sorry I missed last night, but I'm gonna go back and watch it. So I know it was great.
It's gonna be a great two-part series. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that's it for tonight. We will be back here on Thursday night. And let me tell you, now that I have all this stuff at my disposal, I got it right at my fingertips. I can tell you who will be here Thursday night. Thursday night, we have Kate No. We have Kira Person, and I think she's going to be talking to us about the music industry. So that'll be 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Any closing thoughts, Mike?
Uh, no, just great show, and I hope people are listening. They go to his read his book because I'm sure his book is really good. But just check it out. It's very educational.
That's right. All right. So you might get to see Mike Black again, like the guy who goes and checks his shadow, like the groundhog. We might call you the groundhog. Every now and then Mike will show up on Impact Life 24/7, and it'll be 6 weeks of more goodness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you Thursday night, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, right here on Impact Life 24/7. Have a good night.